Welcome to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl. Hello. Our show is about transformation in wealth on all levels, whether it is relationships, money, assets, nature, spirituality, and especially love. There is wealth in all of these areas. It's time to wake up and save yourself, our humanity, and planet. We will continue our fight against geoengineering and chemtrails on this show. We will have an expert guest on this topic so you can understand the integral impact of this on the big picture. The cause and effect of chemtrails are destroying our planet and humanity. It is affecting us by the tremendous escalation of Alzheimer's and autism. Please stay tuned. Our special guest this evening is Dr. Jean Shinoda Bolen. This is the second and final segment of our two-part series with Dr. Bolen. Jean Shinoda Bolen, MD. Dr. Bolen is a psychiatrist, a Jungian analyst, and an internationally known author of 12 influential books in over 85 foreign translations. She is a Distinguished Life Fellow of the American Psychiatric Association and a former clinical professor of psychiatry at the University of California at San Francisco, and a past board member of the Ms. Foundation for Women. She is in the Academy Award-winning anti-nuclear proliferation film, Women for America. For the World, the Canadian Film Board's Goddess Remembered, and FEM, Women Healing the World. The Million Circle Initiative was inspired by her book and led to her going to the UN and becoming an advocate for the UN 5th World Conference on Women. Later this year, her new book, Atalanta?
Artemis.
Artemis.
Changed her name.
Oh, well, she changed the name to Artemis. The indomitable spirit of every woman. And the 30th anniversary edition of Goddesses of Every Woman and the 25th anniversary edition of Gods in Every Man will be published. You can go to the websites www.5wc.org and www.millionthcircle.org. Jean, it's an honor, Dr. Jean Bolen. It's an honor for you to be here. I met you at the premiere of the FEM movie at the San Rafael Theater.
That's what courage is.
Absolutely.
Courage is doing it even though you're scared.
Yes, yes. And it takes courage to be living, period.
Well, it's not that hard sometimes for us.
But I mean, you know, with all the things that come about, you know, the challenge. I mean, I've had so many challenges in my life, and I feel like I've got a big C, not only for Cheryl, but courage. Because I've been through so many challenges, but it makes you stronger. I have chosen to make me stronger.
Well, the saying is true, that which does not kill you makes you strong. There's some truth to that. There's some truth to that. And
wonderful guest.
Well,
I came on fighting for my life. I was an RH baby. So I came on fighting for my life, and I almost died because they had to transfuse my blood, you know? Yeah. So I'm not giving up ever until it's my last breath. Whatever it takes, whatever it takes.
It's also part of your story. And whenever somebody picks up a piece of their true life story and gets how it says who she is now or who he is now, this I was an RH baby and I survived, the will. And also the reality that you were transfused with someone else's blood. Someone else gave you the energy. And you came into the world at a time when there was enough medical skills and ability that you could live. The combination of the technical medical world, the generosity of a blood donor, and your own feistiness, and there you are.
And you know, in that year, they made the anti-serum to the RH factor. In the same year I was born.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I'm so happy. Maybe I was part of that, you know, assisting in that. I don't know, you know, amongst all the, I've
You
only
might
met,
have been. You might
I've
have
only
been.
met one other RH baby.
Mm,
But anyway, yeah, it's who I am. But you know, I didn't really embrace it until just a few years ago. Really embracing it. Why do I survive all these challenges and I still have a good attitude? And I still have my sense of humor,
Yes,
you know?
yes.
And it's, you know, I mean, I've done rebirthing. I've done
Yeah,
so many
yeah.
therapies and
Well, you got
know.
transfused by a lot of people.
And you know, and I think that probably that makes it easier for me to detach too, on some level. When you get to a point, sometimes you just have to detach from somebody that's not particularly healthy.
Oh, yes.
You know, I mean,
Yes,
I know
yes.
you've been there. You know, it's a little bit easier because then I think of, well, this isn't healthy.
Well, there's also something about archetypes. I mean, that's really where I started helping women to get a handle on the complexity inside and to talk to them about their archetypes inside and their stereotypes outside. And we're being worked. Consciousness raising is about two things. One is the depth of the archetype, that if you live from it, you have a deeper sense of meaning, because you aren't just doing what people say you ought to do.
Yes.
You are doing something from deep within that is soul satisfying. So I wrote Goddesses in Every Woman and described 8 basic kinds of, well, it wasn't exactly a system, because it's the major goddesses in Greek mythology, and they are each unique and strong in their own particular way, and they also have their stories. And then when I could see that if you were like what you're talking about, the ability to detach, the ability to go for it, that is a particular. There were 3 goddesses, but 2 in particular that were Artemis and Athena, that could do that easier than if you were deep down Mother archetype, deep down, which is Demeter, deep down Hera. Then if you are deep down like Demeter or Hera, you can see how difficult it is for, say, someone whose whole meaning was to be a wife, and how her whole sense is marriage is sacred, and then she runs into one of these characters who is a philandering Zeus, untrustworthy, etc. Well, she's betrayed on so many levels, but she holds on so tightly because the archetype in her says this is the source of your meaning. Now, if you happen to have a different archetype that is much more one unto herself, it is easier to say, I have a boundary, I have an ethical boundary here, and I did not sign up to be with someone who makes me feel like I am with someone who is unethical, or you know. So it's just easier. So we can say to somebody who, if you're a Artemis or Athena, oh, get over it and move on. But if you were a Demeter mother archetype and you weren't able to get pregnant, or you had an abortion because you got talked into it, you're going to go through grieving that somebody else is not going to go through like that. We're different. So I had put out a way of appreciating with compassion but understanding about the many differences within us and among us. And then on top of it, you have expectations that family and culture and patriarchy puts on you. And that's what the women's movement brought up in spades in the 60s and 70s, and said, look, we are defined by patriarchy, that we all should be, as Gloria Steinem once said, we all got trained to be female impersonators in the beginning. Do you remember her saying that?
Yeah.
Because there was a model of what a girl should be like, and so we all sort of.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's.
I guess I've always kind of been a little bit out from that.
And that's
just because of the way I was raised. You know, my parents, especially my dad, because I was my dad's right arm. You know, and to be myself. And I've taught my daughter to do that. Be yourself.
Right.
I've nurtured that from when she was just little tiny, be
She
yourself.
she also may have had some of that in her to begin
Yeah,
with.
oh, I'm sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's her own, I just supported
But
it.
imagine how many little girls all over the world, even now, who start out like that, are told that's not what a girl is expected to behave like.
I know.
It'll make you unmarriageable. At your time said, well, the argument went that women did not have souls, really, in theology.
Yeah.
In the cradle of democracy of Greek, ancient Greek, classical Greek, it was a cradle of democracy for the guys, but women were property.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that's not what I learned in the history of Western civilization
No.
in college. It took me learning that, hey, wait a minute, that's true if we're just talking about mankind. But if you're talking about womankind too, that was not the cradle of democracy. And if you say that God is totally male and doesn't have any feminine qualities at all, if God is male and men are made in the image of God, then they have the right to own everything else, including the planet, but certainly the animals, dominion over everything. And that's what
And
we
look what's
are
happening
seeing.
to our planet. Look what's happening to Mother Earth. It's deteriorating. She is suffering terribly because of what man has done.
Right.
And we have to stop it some way. We have to stop it.
I think a lot of it has to do with empowering women.
Yes.
And having empowered women speak for the planet and the animals and the children.
Yes.
And
yes.
for peace.
And to keep speaking and keep speaking.
Right.
Until we can't say another word. I mean, we have to keep doing this. And this is part of all why I'm doing what I'm doing.
And the guys, beginning from the time they were little guys, will live in a much better, humane world for them too.
Oh, of course, because they've had to shut down their emotions, their heartfelt feelings,
had to, in order
to survive.
Yeah.
And it's that's why there's so many heart attacks.
Right.
Etc. This is a good time. I see that this is also a very exciting time that we're living in.
It is.
I'm looking at it as exciting because it's happening. It's happening slowly but surely. It's happening that we're making the impact on equalizing or making things healthier. And I'm just going to keep talking about these chemtrails and about what's going on because this has to stop.
See, this is about where tipping point. If enough people talk about certain things, that which is resisted at first gains more and more credibility. More and more people start to accept that this is the way it is, really.
Yes.
And it may sound mystical because it touches into a collective unconscious or a morphic field.
Right.
And at a certain point, on the surface, it appears that things are pretty much the way they are. And the argument to say there should not be gay marriage, and that if you smoke marijuana, you should be thrown in jail. That's been held for decades and decades or forever or whatever. And then, lo and behold, what I call the millionth circle or the 100th monkey.
The 100th monkey, yes.
The critical mass tipping point happens, and all of a sudden we have gay marriage being acceptable in so many places.
And marijuana being legalized.
Really? Who would have thought it?
Well, it's happening.
That's,
Yes.
And that required really ordinary grassroots momentum.
Absolutely.
Because there's another research thing that says changes involving women's issues have been changed only, well, the great research was like 40 years of history, since the 60s, 70 countries, reviewed all of them as to how and when did women get certain benefits, certain rights. And did it have to do with the wealth of the country? No. Did it have to do with the number of women in government? No. Did it have to do with a liberal government in power? No. The only thing it had to do with is a women's movement that was strong and active, that made noise. like what's happening in India right now. The laws are on the books. You shouldn't rape women, but women were getting raped all over the place.
Yeah.
They took to the streets, and suddenly the laws are being enforced. Suddenly the politicians at the top care about women being raped. They didn't care before.
Yeah.
But so,
Yes,
you know,
we just keep the march.
we do.
Keep the march. And my march is a huge one about the money thing, the greed, that greed factor.
Mm-hmm.
And up, because I was back in the corporate environment, and it's got to change. It just has to change. So this is part of that. And then making and assisting getting the awareness and getting our planet, let Mother Earth heal herself.
Right.
Can't relate to soul because it's like beyond their spiritual awareness, but it's the soul and the heart that really matter when it comes down to it in living.
True.
I mean, that's what it's all about. And so, but then we're humans, so we have to, or we can choose to, not have to, but we choose, like what I'm doing, what you're doing, the work that you're doing, and I, am very grateful because you've been at it a long time, and you've helped all of us that are around the world to elevate our consciousness. And I'm, grateful because I've been doing this for a while.
Right.
And I didn't even know that you
Right.
were the impetus from the beginning.
No. What I very often do is I put words to what everybody already knows at some level.
Right.
So it's not like inventing something.
No.
I just wanted to make the point that if you hear something and you take to it, it's because you're ready to hear it.
Absolutely. Timing.
and so what I also count on is synchronicity.
Absolutely.
That there's something about if you're doing the work from heart, soul, heart, self, from ego, self, axis, however you put it in the various languages,
right.
we're all talking about the same thing.
Describe it, yes.
Then it's like the universe, whatever you want to call it, responds with synchronicity. That is to say that whatever you're working on, whether it's creative work by yourself or whether it's activist work in the world, if you do the work from that particular place, then it's like you get feedback that the synchronicities help you to do whatever it is you're doing.
Exactly. And I use this word, descriptive word from Deepak Chopra's. He says the synchrodestiny.
The what?
Synchrodestiny.
Synchrodestiny.
Synchrodestiny. I've studied him for years. I love him. I adore him.
That's a nice term, too.
I like that because when you are attuned with your purpose and your passion, then the synchronicities, but the synchrodestiny is like everything starts unfolding because that's part of your destiny.
Yes.
I mean, I love that.
It's true.
It's great. I mean, he's another one that I adore. His philosophies.
Okay, giving a plug for my use of the word assignment, which I did in moving toward the Million Circle, because I also wanted to reflect back to those women that I see starting NGOs in lots of places in the world, on the ground. Like women who have been trafficked, who turn around, and after they're strong enough to take on what now is their mission, they help get girls out of brothels. They go to the UN to make a cause for it. And it seemed like, well, boy, is this ever an assignment? And so I started to think, an assignment is like Joseph Campbell speaks about living your myth, but it has to do with, it's meaningful for you. There's so many causes in the world.
Oh, yes.
I mean, your background in the business world and the shock at hitting the corporate world and seeing how unethical it can be gave the notion of working as you are working meaning. The rest of us can step back and not like what we are reading, but we're not stepping in unless it's our assignment. So it's assignment. But the second thing that surprises people is I say, if you pick up your assignment, because it has your name on it, You recognize it inside, all interior.
Yes.
And the second thing is that it's fun.
Well, you love it. I mean, I love talking about it, and I love having conversations with all different kinds of people about it.
And it led to you doing this.
Yes.
I mean, it started out somewhere else. It uses you, what you know, what your talents are, and stretches you to be more than you were at first, and connects you with a bigger world than you even knew before. It's fun, even when it's hard, even when you cry because you run into some of the disappointments that exist when you are on any kind of an advocacy thing.
I've had that.
And so then the third criterion is that it's motivated by love.
Absolutely. That's like the most important thing. Or I couldn't do it if I wasn't motivated by my passionate love feeling. And as I say, unconditional love, and I have to work at that every day, just like everybody does, like not judging, not criticizing, especially myself. But, that's where it all stems from.
But there's also the calling that you're following that is deeply motivated by love.
Oh,
and then you have the daily sort of tinkering with the ordinary light and darks of life.
Yes.
But if it's meaningful, if it'll be meaningful, fun, and motivated by love, which economically, I keep saying, it's the only, everything else is zero sum, but love. The more you give away, the more the other person has, the more you have, and the more there is in the world.
Absolutely.
That was your introduction.
We're on the same
we actually are.
Same level of
frequency. I thought we were going to be talking about money, but actually we're talking about a lot of other things, and money is only a symbol.
Because really it's the relationship. It all comes down to our relationship with ourselves and with others.
Right.
That is the key to being healthy and whole on all levels. That's my experience and what I can say for what I've come through and lived through in my lifetime. There's so much you can do without if you want to, and you don't have to. But if you don't have that love, you can wither.
If you cannot be really yourself, I think there's something that within each person that wants to become who you came into this world to be. And I think that there is a need to find it and to follow it too.
Oh, yes. And you're shorting yourself if you don't follow it. If you know, and sometimes it takes, like I've been doing, one step at a time.
It always is one step at a time.
Well, I mean, you don't have a choice, really.
No, not only is one step at a time, but sometimes my current useful metaphor is the whole notion of the Chart labyrinth. Is that, you head into it and your intention is to reach the center. Well, it isn't a straight line from here to there. It's labyrinthine. Yeah. And there are, as I recall, I could be wrong about it, as I recall, there are 13 U-turns on the Chart labyrinth.
Oh, wow.
And since I have been working at the UN since 2002 for a 5th World Conference on Women, not for the conference itself, but to really energize a global women's movement. Yes. And there gets to be support, and then the ambassador leaves. Then last 2012, the Secretary General himself and the President of the General Assembly said, it's time we had one. Please, General Assembly, give us a resolution and we'll set it in motion. So he asked for a simple resolution for a World Conference on Women. The last one was in Beijing in 1995, and he didn't get it from the General Assembly, and he didn't get it because President Obama's, our administration, our country, and Susan Rice, who was representing the administration, and basically the United States and the EU decided to lobby against it, and they did. And it didn't.
Why?
imagine that it had something to do with 2012 being an election year. I can imagine that it had a great deal to do with no excuse now, and that's why I have a petition.
Yeah, well, I signed it, like I
That's
said, and
why
I'm sending it out to everybody I know.
And it says, President Obama, this time, support a 5th World Conference on Women. It's on www.5WCW for 5th World Conference on Women.org.
Yeah.
And when there's a sufficient number, what we need is what critical mass tipping point. We need to get enough people to know, and because I think that given Michelle Obama 2 daughters, and should enough people become interested in this, then he will have support to do the right thing.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
often, that's what we really need.
Yep.
So critical mass tipping point.
Yes.
And
anything that you would like to share about Artemis?
That is my latest book, and it comes out in September. It's called Artemis, the Indomitable Spirit in Every Woman. And indomitable is the key word.
Yes.
Indomitable means untamed, unsubdued. And some infant girls come into the world with that indomitable spirit. I will not die. You know, the RH story you told. It's like that. Really, it is like that. I will not die. And often the girl child who makes it through some of the surgeries or whatever it is that she has to get through, that the archetype under it is Artemis. Artemis is the goddess of the hunt and goddess of the moon. So what do you have? You have the ability to focus on a target. So I want women who are activists or potential activists to recognize that this is their archetype. And if they live from that archetype, it's not their only archetype, by the way. We all have access to all of them. But when it's the major one, it can carry you through life. And so I think this is a great archetype that women need to appreciate in themselves, and itself still is that part in every woman that has the potential for the indomitable spirit.
We are ending now. This has been fun, Jean. I've enjoyed this.
I do too.
Especially since the beginning. Oh Lord, but thank you. I'm honored that you came. Oh gosh.
There's lots of love energy, and it was meaningful and fun.
Yes, and yes. And thank you. I'll leave you with this. When fear knocks, let faith answer the door.